Want to know why? Ask how. Howard the Humongous.
Donald Trump says that Latino immigrants are murderers and rapists. Statistics show that Latino immigrants are less violent and perform fewer criminal deeds than Donald Trump's followers. Yes, fewer criminal deeds than fans of Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Trump also says that Joe Biden is Sleepy Joe, Crazy Joe, and Creepy Joe. He calls Elizabeth Warren, who could wipe the floor with him in a debate, Pocahontas. He encourages cheers of lock her up for Hillary Clinton. Apparently, Trump has not figured out a name yet for Kamala Harris. Last week, we talked about why the president's language of hate against immigrants and against his opponents makes him wildly popular with his fans. We talked about politics as permission to hate. We talked about how slamming immigrants and liberals and standing on their necks gives Trump followers a feeling that they are higher on the pecking order than the folks they put down. And with that feeling of a lift in the pecking order comes the high of a hormone, dopamine. Dopamine is the chemical that courses through your system when you are filled with righteous indignation. Dopamine hits you when you are filled with a moral rage encouraged by your subculture. Dopamine surges when you are roused to indignation and outright hatred by your leader. If that leader is Donald Trump, he has urged police to toss those they arrest into a van and to do it roughly. Yes, Trump urged police to not protect your suspect's head. And implicitly, he encouraged cops to do what the police had done not long ago to Freddie Gray in Baltimore. They tossed this young black man into a van roughly with his wrists cuffed behind his back. They did not sit him up on a bench. They left him helpless on the floor. Then they drove with as many twists, turns, and rough potholes as they could, slamming Gray back and forth against the metal posts of the benches above him. In the process, they broke his neck. The police killed a man who, according to the American system of justice, was innocent until proven guilty. The president cheered on that sort of murderous behavior. He made it look like great fun. Dopamine is one of the hormones that gives us the speed rush that makes cocaine so appealing to some people. It is the chemical of this kind of so-called fun. But kicking the shit out of others for fun, then standing on their backs and moving ourselves up a notch, is not the only way we can get pecking order highs. There is an opposite approach, an approach that explains how those of us on the left get our highs. Surprisingly, it's the social justice approach. You can see these two approaches, bullying versus social justicing, at work in the chimpanzees strutting and swaggering that is laid out by primatologist Frans de Waal in his incredible book, Chimpanzee Politics. There are two techniques of leadership in a chimpanzee troop. One is the approach you take if you are a strong young male with political leanings, a male who wants to become the alpha, the leading male in the pack. You are a bully. But you are more. You are an alliance maker. You put together a pack of bullies like you, and you behave terribly. You and your pack bully others. You take away their food. You threaten them with physical violence. You stop them from having sex. What's more, periodically, you challenge the troop's existing leader. You have a confrontation with him. You and he erect your fur in magnificent mantles, making yourselves look bigger than you really are. And you stare unflinchingly into each other's eyes for 20 seconds, showing your strength and your determination. Meanwhile, you act contemptuously toward others in the troop. Or you get attention. You get attention by finding a branch or an oil can you can drag across the center of the troop's territory, making a resounding noise. You became a one chimpanzee reality show. So approach number one is the one Trump uses, bullying. But approach number two is social justice. Imagine that after a series of showdowns with the current head male, you make him flinch, you make him look small, and you take over his leadership slot. Now, to keep your lofty position above others, you have to move to an entirely different strategy. You have to utterly change your tactics. If you keep up the bullying approach, the voters in the troop, the females and children, will drive you out of power. Why? Because to lead the troop, You have to stop beating up on those smaller than you are. You have to change to social justice. In other words, you have to become the defender of the poor and the oppressed. You have to save others from being bullied. If you see one of the weakest males or females in the troop being mugged or intimidated, you have to stand up in his or her defense. You have to stop bullies in their tracks. That is the path to the hearts and minds of your chimpanzee constituents. Yes, the social justice approach exists even in animals with whom we share a common ancestor, chimpanzees. It is not the product of lofty reason. It is the product of biologically built-in instinct. And surprisingly, the social justice approach is also another path to a feeling that you tower over others, a feeling that you are high in the pecking order, a feeling that turns your immune system up to high and floods you with positive hormones. Why? Because the folks that you champion will always be lower than you are. Every act of your generosity proves that you are an aristocrat, that you are on top, that you are lord of the manor, and those you champion are your people. The higher they rise, the higher they lift you. And the lofty feeling that comes with your sense of being an aristocrat is a drug-like charge, a high bulging with internal intoxicants, hormones like serotonin. So when Donald Trump gives you permission to hate what he calls illegals, he gives you a dopamine high. He makes you feel on top of the world. He lets you stand on the bodies of the illegals he has given you permission to loathe. And when a Trump hater like me stands up for the rights of Hispanic asylum seekers and economic immigrants, it proves that we too are high on the totem pole. No matter how high the poor and the oppressed who we champion rise, we will be lofted even higher. We will still tower above them in the pecking order. We will tower above them on the social totem pole. And we will get an additional bonus. We will feel righteous indignation against Donald Trump and those who love him. From that righteous indignation, we will get a delirious jolt of guess what? Dopamine. So the Trump approach channels hatred toward Latino immigrants to give his followers a dopamine high, a pecking order high. And the progressive approach champions the rights of liberals to achieve, guess what? A dopamine high, a feeling of being high in the pecking order. Politics is permission to hate, and politics gives permission to champion the poor and the oppressed. But both of these opposite approaches, the approach of the right and the approach of the left, give us satisfaction because they lift us in the pecking order. Under the politics of both the left and right are ancient biological drives. Under the politics of this 2020 election campaign are instincts we share with animals. This is Howard the Humongous speaking to you from the future. It's your job and my job to make. Or, want to know why? Ask how. And now for the infamous slimy sleazy, we're going to have to look up a bunch of other words that start with S. Little off button. I've got it.